Hi, I'm Dr. Andrea Hall, the author of the Metaphysical Love Stories. Thanks for stopping by. I'll be reading Raw and Uncut from my first book entitled Good Regardless, a metaphysical love story. And I'll be reading from chapter 2 entitled Sometimes God's Name is Something. If you like romance with a twist, you'll like these stories. Chapter 2. Sometimes God's name is something. Life without Ayanla physically at my side was only bearable because her spirit remained with and in me. She provided constant comfort and encouragement, never leaving me, just as she promised. Everyone outside of us was baffled at how well I seemed to be doing without her. They couldn't understand how I could possibly be coping, and they didn't believe I was. When I explained that Ayanla was still with me on the inside, it only convinced them further that something was wrong with me. For the most part, members of our New Thought community knew exactly what I meant, but even our parents were concerned by how well I was holding up. They'd raised us in the New Thought faith, but I saw each of them crying on occasion. I wanted to cry, but I had promised Ayanla when she was in the hospital I wouldn't. She said if I did, it would be the same as admitting she was dead and not alive in me. Everyone was concerned when I didn't cry, especially when I remained dry eyed at her homegoing service. There, I kept up a constant conversation with Ayanla about everything we saw and heard. We talked about the flowers, the closed coffin with a huge, beautiful framed photo of Ayanla on top, musical choices for the ceremony, people who attended, who cried, and who didn't. We were most impressed that our 13-year-old neighbor Daniel cried openly and unapologetically. We thought it made him look very mature. Daniel had been our playmate for as long as we could remember. He preferred playing with us over anyone else, even the other boys in the neighborhood. His favorite game was house. He always wanted to be the husband and chose Ayanla as his wife. At the age of 5, Daniel said he wanted to marry Ayanla for real. His 12-year-old brother Marcus, having been to a wedding as a guest before and a ring bearer in another, said he knew how to marry people and offered to perform the ceremony. We held a marriage ceremony in our backyard and invited the neighborhood kids. Ayanla wore her prettiest dress, and Daniel wore the suit he wore to church on Easter Sunday. Marcus performed the marriage ceremony. Some of the older kids had phones and took pictures of the wedding and shared them on social media. Someone sent the photos to our parents, who were greatly amused. From then on, they referred to Daniel as Ayanla's husband and my brother in law. Like he did at the homegoing service, Daniel had shared his feelings for his wife, Ayanla, openly and unapologetically. When other kids attempted to tease him about having a crush on her, Daniel would set them straight, stating, "It's not a crush. She's my wife." Once, Ayanla and I suggested we should switch off so I could be the wife and mother sometimes. Daniel had refused. He said he was already married to Ayanla, so she had to be his wife all the time. Our parents and Daniel's were amused by their children's marriage, especially when we turned 13, long past the age of playing house, and Daniel and Ayanla still acknowledged their marriage. They playfully referred to each other as husband and wife, but seriously defended the validity of it if anyone else challenged it as not being real. The usual accuser was only doing it because they wanted to be Daniel's girlfriend or Ayanla's boyfriend. My role in their relationship had always been the faithful sister and sister in law. Ayanla wanted me to go to Daniel at the homegoing service to comfort him. I couldn't. I was afraid if I got close to him, I would break my promise to her not to cry. Daniel's pain was palpable. I turned my head away and upward, commanding the tears to stay inside. Ayanla understood and said she would comfort Daniel herself. I never cried while awake, but sometimes I'd wake up and my pillow would be wet. I didn't consider that breaking my promise since I wasn't aware of crying in my sleep. It could be sweat, I rationalized. Daniel and I attended the same middle and high school. We sought each other out at first, but then we tried to remain close. But it was obvious that it was Ayanla who'd held us together as friends. We didn't talk about her, but the sadness between us pointed a glaring finger at her absence. We drifted apart, but remained friendly and interested in each other's well being when we crossed paths. One day, as I sat alone on the steps of the high school courtyard, observing the lunchtime activity, Daniel came and sat next to me. How are you doing? I'm good. You? Me too. I have a girlfriend. That's good. Do I know her? Probably. She went to middle school with us. Amelia Curry? Oh, yeah. She seems nice. I wanted to tell you and ask you how you feel about it. I guess nobody will ever replace Ayanla, but she told me to move on, and she didn't expect me to mourn her forever. She talks to you? She does. Started talking to me the day of her homegoing service. I'm glad she talks to you too. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just making it up in my mind, so I'll feel better about her not being physically here. I know I'm not making it up, but it helps to know that I'm not the only one who hears her. At least I know you don't think I'm crazy. We're not crazy. We just miss her like crazy. She knows we still need her. That's why she's still with us. A few minutes passed as we sat in silence, contemplating what each of us had just divulged. He held a steady gaze, observing my expression, as if deciding whether to say more or not. I nodded and smiled at him, indicating that he should continue. He did so, speaking quickly and earnestly in a hushed voice, shutting everyone else out of the conversation he'd been wanting to have with me for a very long time. It was real, Aisha. My love for Ayanla was very real, even though we were so young. He leaned forward, eyes opened wide, and clasped my hands in his before he began again. The solemn the solemn, mature demeanor in which Daniel expressed himself now was the same as he demonstrated the day of his wedding to Ayanla and the day of the homegoing service. I'm glad we got married when we did. Something told me we needed to get married that day because we might not be able to later. I had no idea that her dying would be what would keep us from getting married later. I'm glad I listened to that voice and married her then. I smiled warmly at my brother in law and said, sometimes God's name is something. Sometimes God's name is something, he echoed. I like that. I'm glad I listened to God and married Ayala then, and I'm glad you're okay with me having a girlfriend now. You're so cute, Daniel. I see why Ayana loves you so much. She wants you to be happy. I do too. I gathered my brother in law in a warm embrace, at once holding on to him and releasing him to continue on his new path without reservation. I was happy he'd kept Ayanla in his heart for so long, and that he thought enough of me to seek my blessing before moving on. Of course, he didn't need to, but it endeared him to me even more. He'd have made a wonderful husband, I said to Ayanla. He was a wonderful husband, she corrected me. Thank you for listening. That was chapter 2 in my first book, Good Regardless, a metaphysical love story. Sometimes God's name is something. If you want to hear more from my readings in my series, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to get your copy and continue the journey, just click the link in my description box to order your book. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.